Today, I am looking at the top 10 players, not only in the NBA, but players who may be coming in the next couple of seasons under the age of 22. Michael Bolton.
Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and I am the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com and at Yahoo Sports Australia. And you can find me on Twitter as always at redrock_Beeble and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Today, just doing something a little bit different, and I thought I'd look at players in the NBA or basketball players in general who I think are going to be the best 10 players under the age of 22. 22 age was just a random cutoff. I'm not actually sure why I chose 22, but basically this is to look at guys who in the next, say, 3 to 4 years will really starting to be pre-prime or actually coming into their prime. Therefore, it has ability or translatability into dynasty leagues. I am looking at this from not a purely fantasy point of view, but a large chunk of it is fantasy value, not necessarily who I think the top 10 players in the NBA are going to be in 3 years, but these are the top 10 players for me for fantasy value under the age of 22. If we're looking at it again in probably a 3-year window where these guys are going to sit in fantasy leagues out of a grouping. So while it is a weird criterion that I'm using, or weird criteria that I am using for this, it's just giving you an idea of the best 10 players, best 10 young guys, sorry about that little robotic malfunction, the best 10 young guys that I can see who, when we're looking 3-4 years in the future, they will be those best 3 type or best 10 type of players. That's enough of this absolute ramble that I am going on about. So let's get to talking about these top 10 players under the age of 22. And start things off, it's a player who isn't in the NBA, and it is Evan Mobley. Yes, Evan Mobley, who will not be in the 2020 NBA draft. He is almost definitely going to be in the 2021 NBA draft. Is a guy that at this point is considered a top 5 pick in that draft. He is a 7-foot center. And in general, when I talk about centers, I don't necessarily think that they've got huge correlation to winning in the NBA, but when they get minutes, they can provide really good numbers. And we've seen that with someone like a Deandre Ayton, for example. While I don't think, and he is going to appear on this list, I'm pretty sure he's on this list, that they are guys who can put up really, really good fantasy numbers. And someone like Mobley is someone that I think can do that. 7 foot tall, can block shots, has got an offensive game as well. There is a lot to like about what Mobley can do now. How high can he take it? Where can we see him go in terms of being able to shoot? He's going to be playing for USC in college. There's not a huge amount of numbers out there, but if you look at his AAU numbers, he shot 50% from 3, limited attempts. Free throws were a little bit of a worry, but blocking shots, getting rebounds, some passing, some offensive ability. I think that when we're looking at these top 10 players under the age of 22, Mobley is one of those guys we should absolutely be considering, and he is part of a pretty stacked 2021 NBA draft class. The guys who just missed out of this list in terms of players from that 2021 draft, I had Jonathan Kuminga right there at number 11, and Boston was another guy that I had in that list to come in, and even Jalen Green, who I'm not quite as high on Jalen Green, especially for fantasy purposes, but guys like BJ Boston and Jonathan Kuminga. Kuminga's the really interesting one to me, who's just reclassified to be able to be in the 2021 NBA draft class. He was sitting there at number 11, but Mobley, one of these players that, again, we're looking at as a 2021 draft guy who I think can have multiple top 40, top 30 fantasy seasons. And if the offensive game and the shooting does come around, he will be in that mix to be a much higher ranked player in that situation. Let's go on to the next guy now at number 9 on my list. It's Wendell Carter Jr. Now, Wendell Carter has been somewhat disappointing his first 2 seasons. He played 29 minutes a game this year. He was the 112th ranked player, but he's still only 21. He's just turned 21, and his coach is a real problem. Jim Boylan, the old Shadow King, Thumbhead, he has not played to Carter's strengths. Carter is a very, very good defender, a guy that can handle the ball, who can be a facilitator as a center, who showed an ability to shoot threes at Duke, but somehow lost that ability. And I think a significant chunk of that is due to a lack of confidence in him from Boylen. I think that he is, in Dynasty Leagues, a real buy low type of a player who's got the ability to jump back up boards and be a top 50. I think the worst case scenario for him in his career is he is a top 50 player. I think he's got top 25 upside, and surely the Bulls are going to be moving on from Boylen, and we get a proper coach in there who knows how to utilize this bloke, who can get him to get up to 3.5, 4 assists per game, hitting 1.5 threes, scoring 16 points, 10 rebounds, 2 blocks, 1 steal on pretty strong percentages. I think he can do all of those things, so I still have a tremendous amount of faith in someone like Carter, who, again, he's younger than PJ Washington. He's 6 months younger than PJ Washington. We forget that, he's just that, and he's also the same age as Marvin Bagley, which, again, we always tout how young Bagley is, and I'm not a massive fan of Bagley, as you're well aware, but I do really believe in Wendell Carter, and I think he's somewhat of a distressed fantasy asset at this point, meaning that you can get him at a pretty cheap, or cheap enough price, I think, in Dynasty Leagues after 2 years under Jimmy Boylen. I'm going to tell you guys about today's sponsor, and that is, of course, Built Bar, the best tasting protein bars that you can find. Built Bar tastes just like a candy bar. 100% chocolate covering, 16 different flavors for the old Built Bar bars. 8 of those are nut-free. We're talking low calorie, we're talking high protein, 20 grams of protein in the peanut butter brownie bar, 170 calories. What kind of you don't find bars that taste that good, that have that sort of a nutritional profile. Built Bar are the protein bars that you should be getting a hold of. And if you use the promo code LOCKEDON, you can save $10 off your first order. So go to BuiltBar.com, use that promo code LOCKEDON and save $10 off your first order. BuiltBar.com, promo code LOCKEDON. After you've loaded up on Built Bar protein bars, why don't you get some nourishment for your brain? And one great way of doing that is by using Blinkist. What Blinkist does is it takes information from non-fiction books, thousands of non-fiction books, and condenses it down into 15 minutes. None of the fluff, none of the extraneous nonsense that is used to fill out a book. Blinkist gives you the key takeaways from these non-fiction books and puts it into your brain in 15 minutes, either in written form or in audio form. You can get a book like The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss and devour that in just 15 minutes. With Blinkist, you get unlimited access to read or listen to a massive library of condensed non-fiction books, all the books you want, all for one low price. And right now, for a limited time, Blinkist has a special offer just for our audience. Go to Blinkist.com/NBA. Try it free for 7 days and save 25% off your new subscription. That's Blinkist, spelled BLINKIST.com/NBA to start your free 7-day trial. And you'll also save 25% off, but only when you sign up at Blinkist.com/NBA. Let's go on to the next guy on my list now after Wendell Carter at number 9, and it is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander at number 8. And that feels low, considering how good Shai was this season. The 52nd ranked player, 19 points per game. Can he be better than that? Probably. He won't be able to get to 20 points per game. Only 3.5 assists, or under 3.5, because Chris Paul and Dennis Schroeder were there. Can that push to 6? Probably. 1.1 steals? Can that get higher? Absolutely. So when looking at this, I look at those numbers from Shai and go, he's the number 8 on my top 20 or top 10 under 22 list. That feels really low, but then I know what the rest of the list is, and I go, it's because there's an absolute shit ton of really, really good players who are coming above him. This is not to say Shai is not going to be good, and he won't be better than the 52nd ranked player that he is this year. I think he has, like Wendell Carter, top 25, top 20 upside. Get those assists, get those steals back up, push that usage from 24 up to 26. He can do all of those things, and you are talking about a legitimate top 20 player. So Shai comes in at number 8, and while it was a massive breakout for him, there is plenty of room for him to get better. He only hit 1.2 threes per game as well, 35% shooting. He's not a high-volume three-point guy, only 24% of his shots coming from beyond the arc. He's never going to be a 50, a 55, a 45 even, three-point attempt rate sort of a guy, but if he can get it to 33, 34, hit them at 37%, give us 22 points, 1.8 triples, 6 assists, 6 rebounds, 1.5 steals. The top 20 is going to be absolutely smashed by Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and he comes in there at number 8 on my list of top 10 players under the age of 22. The next guy here we look at number 7 is Deandre Ayton. I mentioned him earlier. Ayton, again, really good fantasy numbers. The 28th ranked player this year on a per-game basis. He took his game to another level. And his defense absolutely improved this season. Now, one thing that he needs to do, and I think he can do it, but I'm not certain, is he needs to shoot some threes. Because I'm pretty sure he can do it. 55% from the field, 77% from the line. He's got touch. He's a good shooter. But he didn't hit any threes at all this season. Like none. He needs to start to do that. 19 and 12, 1.7 blocks. That is the key swing thing here for Ayton, though, is blocks. Now, the shooting, all well and good, right? The rebounds, 20 and 10, I think we can lock that in. He was a really poor shot blocker last season, and the numbers this year are significantly elevated. Which one of those is real? Can he hover close to 2 blocks? If so, top 20, top 15. If he's at 0.9, 1.1 blocks, then he is going to struggle to be that consistent player. But with his elite percentages, the 20 and 10 stuff, that's already 4 strong categories that he contributes in. He's already going to be a good top 25, top 20 sort of a guy. It's whether he can get into the top 12, top 15 sort of an area. That is probably going to be the question mark. Look, there's an argument you could make to have Ayton higher than this, and I absolutely would listen to that argument. Considering he's 28th already in just his second season. But that's not exactly what I'm doing. I'm trying to project it out 3 years' time, and there's a few guys who currently are ranked behind him who I think will take that jump ahead of Deandre Ayton into this top of this list. Who else is there? Well, at number 6, it's Triple J, Jaren Jackson Jr. Yes, the rebounding was not good from Jackson this season. He averaged under 5 a game. He only played 28 minutes a game. Some of that was coaching. Some of that was foul trouble issues. But 17 points, 2.5 threes, while doing that on pretty strong efficiency, a true shooting of 59 is a great number. They're all encouraging. I think he can be a 2 blocks per game guy. He's at 1.6 this season. I think he can be a 78, 80% free throw guy. I think he can be a 20.6 rebound player. The rebounds are an issue, and there are plenty of people who'll be like, I hate Jaren Jackson Jr. for fantasy because he's a center and he doesn't get rebounds. And I understand that. But he also, no other centers giving you over 2.5 threes along with almost 2 blocks and doing that while scoring in pretty high volume, even in low minutes. So there is a trade-off. And that's the sort of argument, prime Ryan Anderson. Plenty of people would have that. I'm not never drafting him. I don't want my power forward to not block shots and grab rebounds. That's cool. But what other power forwards are hitting 3 triples a game and doing it with 80+% from the free throw line? There are always going to be trade-offs unless you are at the very, very much pointy end of the draft area or the rankings list. I can easily see an argument for Ayton to be ahead of Jackson. Ayton was ahead of Jackson this season by a significant margin. 65 for Jackson, 28 for Ayton. So that argument is absolutely fine. But again, I'm trying to project out what happens in the next 3 years, and I can see Triple J being a 20-point guy, 6 rebounds, over 2.5 threes, 2 blocks, good percentage numbers, whereas I'm not sure that the extra rebounds that Ayton gets is able to make up for probably more blocks that we get from Jackson and definitely more 3-pointers. I'm not sure that those two things even out, but I could see a scenario where Gilgeous-Alexander is actually ahead of both of these guys, Jaren Jackson and Deandre Ayton. That is a definite possibility, but this is my list and this is the way I ordered it, and if you've got disagreements with it, I want to hear them. Please let me know down in the comments, because this is just estimation. It's estimation based on numbers, but it's also stuff that can easily go wrong. So this is how I view these things and how I would value these players in dynasty type leagues. So check. Let me know. Tweet at me. Drop it down below in the comments here on this YouTube video. The next player we're going to take a squiz at number 5, it is Jaren Jackson's teammate Ja Morant, who comes in at number 5. As a rookie, Morant was the 74th ranked player. He played just 30 minutes a game and averaged 17.5 points with 7 assists. 49 and 77 for a true shooting of 57%. He does not take threes. Well, that's not true because he takes some threes, but 2.4 that's a third of what Jaren Jackson takes. It is not enough. This was the concern with him. The percentage is fine. And it's like Gilgeous-Alexander. Like 37% from 3, it's fine. But there's not volume there. He gets that from 0.9 triples and gives you 2.4 triples or 2 triples. Then you get a 22-point per game player who gives you 8 assists and does it on pretty strong efficiency numbers. And then that top 20 is going to be smashed. Again, he only played 30 minutes. He's going to be a 34, 35-minute-a-night guy as early as next season. And I think he's probably going to be a 20-point per game scorer as early as next season. But can 0.9 threes translate into something better? Can 0.9 steals get better? That is a concern as well. Really low defensive numbers in college and absent defensive numbers in the NBA. Getting to the line was great. I think that's going to take a step forward. Efficiency, really, really strong. 2-point percentage, really solid as well. He's got a lot of room to grow. He is, interestingly, older than Jaren Jackson, despite coming in to the NBA 1 year later. Both guys have yet to hit age 21. And that's another thing when I talk about Deandre Ayton. Ayton is over a year older than both of these guys. Ayton and Gilgeous-Alexander are the same age, but they are both over a year older than Jaren Jackson and Ja Morant. So that is a factor in that as well. So there's an extra year of development on those guys. But Morant, I think, all of these guys that I'm talking about here, and Carter, I don't know if Wendell Carter can be a top 20 player. Evan Mobley might be able to. I think Carter can maybe top out at top 25, top 30. But everyone else since then, Gilgeous-Alexander, Ayton, Jackson, Morant, these are all top 20 guys with top 15, top 12 type upside. That is how stacked this young group of players is in the NBA at the moment. You need parts for your car. You can go into your local auto store and you can ask the guy there, with so many makes and models there, what's the likelihood of him having that part in stock? It's pretty low. So he just gets on his computer, types away, yeah, I can get that part, it'll be 3 to 4 weeks. What's the point of going into that store? You can go straight to rockauto.com, look up the part you need, order it yourself. Don't worry about going into the store, wasting your time there, and you save money. 30, 50, 100% off that price you get in a retail store. You can get those parts shipped straight to you. You can save money. Fix your car yourself. You might already be into fixing your car yourself. Me, I've got no idea how to fix my car, but there are plenty of people who know how to do it. And for that, go to rockauto.com. Rockauto.com is a family business serving the auto parts customers online for 20 years. So rockauto.com. And when they say, where did you hear about us? Write locked on in that box so they know that you came from us. Let's go on to the next guy on our list here, or not on our list, on my list. And that is, at number 4, Cade Cunningham. Some of you will be saying, who? You need to know this name in a hurry. So, 2 years before Luka Doncic's draft, I was talking about Luka Doncic being a transcendent talent. A year or so before Zion Williamson's draft, this is the guy to watch. Cade Cunningham is the guy to watch. I think he absolutely is going to come in and be a top 50 fantasy player as a rookie. He's a 2021 draft guy, along with Evan Mobley. I think that he has got top 10 upside. I think he's got NBA MVP upside. This is a guy with unbelievable passing vision, who can shoot, who can score, who can defend at a pretty strong level. He has got an absolute all-round game, elite vision player. Some of the stuff that he does is stuff that you just don't see for players this age. You need to learn about Cade Cunningham. You need to know, in a dynasty league, you want that number 1 pick in 2021, because this is the next, well, it's not the next Luka Doncic, but this is the next level prospect along those lines. It's not 2020, and you'll notice no 2020 draft guys are on my list. No LaMelo Ball, no Blunty, no James Wiseman. Where are you now? No Anthony Edwards. 2021 is the draft. Cade Cunningham is the guy. He is the guy that you want, in my opinion. Things can change in a year, 2 years. No doubt about that. This is the bloke that I want. And you know what? When I looked at it, I initially had him at about 6. I went, nah, screw this shit. Like, this is an upper level guy. And having him at 4 might even be too low. Cade Cunningham is a guy you need to be aware of. You need to watch his highlights, and his game looks to be something that's going to translate really, really well from a fantasy point of view. Now, the top 3, I think we all know who the top 3 are going to be. What is the order? At number 3, it's Trae Young. Now, Young, out of all of these guys, was the highest ranked under 22 player in fantasy this year, the 7th ranked player. He averaged almost 30 points with 9 assists and a steal. He hit 3.5 triples. He shot 86 from the line on 9.3 attempts. He had a usage of 36%. Is any of this stuff going to change for Trae? Probably not. At least in the next 3 or 4 years. He's going to be a top 10 player for 7 to 10 years, would be my guess. Where does he go from what he did this season? How does he go from the 7th ranked player to a top 3 player? That's what I'm a little bit unsure about. Like, what does he do better than what he's done this season to get to that next step up? And that's no slight on Trae Young, because these numbers are ridiculously good. And he is an amazing fantasy player. And you could make the argument that for fantasy, he's number 2 or number 1. But in 3 years' time, I think this is where he will sit. Cade could go ahead of him. I just worry, does Young have that extra step to go above where he is to become a top 3 player, a top 4 player? And that's what I'm looking at those numbers. Like, you're averaging 30 and 9 already. It's ridiculous as a second-year guy, and I'm not saying he's peaked. But where's it come? It's going to have to come from him getting his steals from 1.1 to 1.5. Not sure. The area that he's got to do it is field goal percentage. He's at 44%, 50% on twos. If he gets those twos up from 50 to 53, the three-pointers from 36 to 39, then we're in the discussion. Then he can do it. And that's not outrageous. That's not impossible for him to be able to do. But I've got him coming in at number 3 here on this list of top 10 players under the age of 22. So, 2 blokes left. Luka Doncic, Zion Williamson. Who is at number 2? It's Zion. Now, Zion's numbers in fantasy this season have not been spectacular. He's the 95th ranked player. He is 19 years of age. He played under 30 minutes a game and averaged 24 points. He had a true shooting of 62%. If he wasn't absolutely horrendous from the free throw line, he would be a top 50 guy already. 24 and 7 he averaged. Now, when I talk about Zion and then when I talk about Trae Young, and I say, where does Young improve? And it's a little bit harder to find that. Where does Zion improve? Easy as shit. He is going to push towards being a 30-point per game scorer. I feel pretty good about that. He hit 0.3 triples a game. He's never going to be a Trae Young. He's never going to be a Jaren Jackson. But can he hit 0.9 a game? Can he triple that output? Sure. 7 rebounds? He can be a 9 rebound guy? No worries. 2 assists? That's got 4 assists written all over it. But the big thing with Zion, no defensive numbers. In college, the defensive numbers were through the roof. And sometimes this takes adjustment. 0.8 steals, 0.5 blocks is nothing. He should be 1.6 steals, 1.2 blocks. And then if he goes from 65% from the line on 8 attempts and does a Blake Griffin-like improvement and becomes a 77, 78% free throw shooter, well, shit, then he is a top 1, top 2 fantasy player. Now, there's a lot of things there that need to change. 3-point shooting, better rebounding, better assists, better steals, better blocks, better free throws. It's a lot to change. He's played 19 games. And we've seen evidence of the passing. I've seen evidence of the defensive numbers. The free throw shooting and the 3-point shooting is a little bit of projection and hopefulness. And that's why he sits at number 2 instead of at number 1. Because at number 1, it is No, it's not. It's Luka Doncic, who comes in as the number 1 player on this list. Now, this season, Luka was the 11th ranked player. That is behind Trae Young. He averaged 29 points. He averaged 9 rebounds and 9 assists. Why is he down at this level? Free throws started to drop off from Doncic, and he is under average there, 75%. Get him to 81% on that sort of volume, and then he jumps ahead of Trae. He's only less than Trae 1 point per game, half a 3 per game, over double his rebounds, only half an assist behind, steals the same, blocks the same, higher field goal percentage. It's the free throws. Get those free throws to 81%, and he goes to be the number 1, number 2 fantasy player at some point. There is a lot of room still for me for Doncic to improve on what he's done this season. Probably more room for improvement than Trae. And a lot of it is going to come down to shooting. And he shot 32% from 3. If he shoots 36% from 3, then it's over. It's a no-brainer for him at number 1. But the 1, 2, and 3 guys there, I think, are in a pretty clear tier of their own. And the only reason I wouldn't include Cunningham in that list is because we're still 2 years away from him playing in the NBA. But I wouldn't be shocked if he's in that mix as well. These are my top 10 players under the age of 22 in the NBA. So we've got at 10, Evan Mobley. At number 9, Wendell Carter. At 8, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. 7, Deandre Ayton. 6, Jaren Jackson. 5, Ja Morant. 4, Cade Cunningham. 3, Trae Young. 2, Zion Williamson. And at number 1, it is Luka Doncic. Let me know what you think about this list. Leave it in the comments below where you would have guys differently, who you would have up and down in this list, please. And tweet it at me at redrock_bball. And don't forget to subscribe. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and on YouTube, guys. We are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.